Welcome to the next video in the series showcasing my problems with learning the guitar, specifically jazz guitar in my case. Today is about triads, more specifically triad pairs. It's a very common sound. Jazz guitarists use it a lot, on pianists as well, horn players, everybody uses it a lot. For many people it is somehow though connected somehow to jazz guitar in some way, because it kind of marks a little bit the modern era, if you want. So it's not that like Grant and Wes Montgomery didn't use those things, they did, but it became with kind of the sound changing to a more electric sound with like the likes of Schofield, Matheny and Abercrombie. The use of triad pairs and triads in general in the playing became a much more obvious kind of cornerstone. Maybe with some of the later players, with like a Rosenwinkel, even slightly away from the kind of earthy bluesy stuff from a Grant Green, more towards where we are now. I say that totally without judgment. I love both eras equally, but it's a very common sound. You should know about it. Everybody should know about it. The problem I had with it is like one of many problems with people who study this kind of stuff. I usually know a lot of things in this regard, you know, like if someone in college tells me or read a book about it, I know about triad pairs, but I have a really hard time implementing them musically. One of the reasons for that is I just was really silly. You see that in a later video. I just didn't think about something very obvious that could help a lot. But let's just jump right into it. So triad pairs are usually a set of two triads. Most commonly they're tone apart or semitone apart in a bit of a weirder thing. There's a great video I'll link down below from the name just escaped me. It's again from my music masterclass. Jerry Bergonzi. He's like the grandmaster, I think, of the new school. And he's such a pleasure to listen to. Amazing sax player, amazing educator. He has like an in-depth video on like triad pairs. I'm like more scratching the surface here, but also I'm kind of want to show you how I applied it on the guitar, because that's kind of where I struggled. So why would you use triad pairs? The triad pairs usually like two triads, 2 times 3 notes. That gives you 6 notes. Some people call it a hexatonic. Because if you put the notes together, you kind of get this 6-note scale, which is a cool thing in itself. But I kind of shy away a little bit from those complicated names, because I think it usually makes things too complicated and scares people, if nothing else. So I just think of it as 2 triads. And the great thing is those 2 triads can give you a lot of extensions for a certain chord to give a certain set of harmony, a certain sound. So one of the most common ones would probably be the triad from the root and a triad from the 9th. So if you have a C7, for example, you have this chord, and then you add like a C major triad and a D triad, you get obviously the notes C, E, G, which is like 1, 3, 5, but you also get the notes D, F sharp, A, which is like 9th, sharp 11, 13th. So this is kind of a cool thing, because it gives you immediately this kind of sharp 11 dominant sound, like this Lydian dominant or Mixolydian sharp 11, however you want to call it. It gives you that sound with those 2 triads, without kind of going into the whole kind of scale thing, melodic minor. You all should know about that as well, but it's just a different avenue and a very strong sound. So on one side, of course, you can use it for comping, for anything, but in terms of playing lines, I had huge issues with that, in the way that I really silly would just see C here and D here, or I would see C here and D there or here. So since those triads are a whole step apart from each other, I kind of only ever seen them right next to each other visually on the guitar, on the same set of strings here and here. The problem with that is when I play like a line, I often just repeated whatever I was playing on the first triad. I just repeated it because I moved it up the neck, and I never had like a kind of a voice leading way to connect those 2 triads, until I kind of only like recently, within the last 2 years, kind of looked at it again and kind of found a way that worked for me to combine like 2 triads from different set of strings. For example, you can have the D triad here like, and you kind of like on this set of strings, or you can kind of play it obviously over all strings, like it would be like D, this D here, but then I would use a C triad that's kind of a different inversion. So, well, this would be the second inversion of D major. I would use the first inversion of C major. And those, what? If you could play them, those have like the G to the F sharp as a voice leading here, and they're generally kind of a bit more intertwined. So that kind of helped me to make sense of it. Like a very common line with this would be like 2 down, 3 up. So it means you start, for example, here from the C and you go 2 down. You play the C and the note below, so you go C, G. Let's do that one more time again. I can't play guitar this morning. So you go C downwards, and then you play the second inversion D upwards. Then you go to the next note of the C, and to the next note of the D, 3 up. And then again. And then if you play that kind of in time, hopefully this goes well, then you get like a... And you have like a nice little phrase over that dominant chord. So that was just kind of for me like a really obvious thing. Instead of seeing the triad just kind of the same inversion of the triad moved 2 frets up, I looked for a different inversion that's kind of closer. This might seem like the most obvious thing in the world because, well, it kind of is the most obvious thing in the world, but I just didn't see that quite. I just thought of the triad in the same inversion moved to 2 frets up, or 1 fret up depending on what you're doing, and it didn't quite work for me. So kind of that realization, finding an inversion that's close to that inversion you're already in, and that ideally voice leads, maybe with a semitone into that, like here, like the G to the F sharp. That's kind of, that was the thing that got me over the hill. Then just quickly, there's another really cool thing you can use. Obviously, those Triad Pairs work with many different sets of harmony. I'm just focusing here on the dominant chords, because dominant chords are a good way to start, because dominant chords are one of those chords where we use a lot of that language very often, purely for the case because a dominant chord as a C7 chord can have so many colors. Like it can be like a mixolydian thing, it can be an altered thing, it can be like a sus thing. So you have so many different shades and versions to play over a dominant chord, where the triad pairs really come in handy. For example, the next part I want to touch on is kind of like an altered sound with a triad pair over a dominant thing, which is very, very common. You hear a lot of guitarists do that. The reason being for that is usually the first thing, again, in school or when someone tells you read a book, you read the word altered and you think of the altered scale, which, like in our case, in terms of a C7, comes like from a place of melodic minor. Like it's like the 7th degree of like D flat melodic minor. And that gives you all the altered notes, like sharp 9, flat 9, sharp 11, sharp 5, all of that. But it's a handful. It's like a huge scale. It's kind of a bit unusual to use at the start. And the problem, what I kind of said at the start, is usually that none of that is wrong information. This is all very good information. It has all the right notes, all the right things. But to make a clear musical statement within that scale is not that easy. And that's kind of where most people struggle. And that's certainly where I struggled. So we go ahead and we pick again 2 triads. This time, in the case over a C7, we pick a triad from the sharp 4, which is F sharp major. And we pick a triad from the sharp 5, which is G sharp major. And again, now I just played it to show you F sharp major, G sharp major. I played the same kind of inversion here on the same set of strings. In the end, I don't do that because I looked again for an inversion that is close, and what I came up with was like F sharp, leading very nicely into the 3rd of the G sharp here. So you play F sharp major, you end on the 5th on the C sharp, going to the 3rd of the other triad. And again, what you get through those 2 triads are all the kind of altered chord extensions you want. Like in terms of F sharp, you get an F sharp, an A sharp, and a C sharp. So that's like your sharp 11 over C7. You get an A sharp, which is a B flat really, which is the flat 7, and you get a C sharp, which is a flat 9. Then on the G sharp, you get the G sharp itself, which is flat 13 or sharp 5. Then you get the B sharp, which is the C, which is the root, and then you get the D sharp, which is the same as E flat, which is like the sharp 9 in our case. So you get all kinds of nice notes, and in a very kind of solid package with this kind of really strong triad sound. So you get phrasing, you get a very cohesive idea very quickly with that. So for example, a line I came up with and use a lot is like this one here. I play F sharp down, F sharp major from the 5th, going into the 3rd of the G sharp, going up to the 5th, that then leads me with a semitone to an A natural, which is the 3rd of the 1 chord from C7. So if you play C7, leading into F. So you can use it, for example, I used it at the end of Have You Met Miss Jones. If you play that tune and you play like, so there I used it twice, unlike the last 2/5 going back into the first A and then into the bridge. And I used the same fingering, same idea, kind of to demonstrate how it works. And it's kind of a really nice sound. It's a strong phrase. It uses the triads. It uses all the extensions I want for the altered chord. Obviously, that's not the only line, not the best line. You have to figure out lines for yourself, ultimately. But like, just I hope this idea helped you to kind of not be too afraid of this subject, and to just be able to don't make the same mistake I did. Just like pick a different version and pick something that's close together for the start, and try to kind of voice lead those two triads into each other, and you get like really cool sounds out of it. Thanks so much for watching this. I hope I see you next week in another video. See you then. Bye.